Good evening, Cedar Falls. Welcome to our regular council meeting for Monday, March 7th, 2022. I'll now call this meeting to order with a roll call from Madam Clerk.
Schultz.
Here.
DeBoer. Here. Cruz. Here. Harding.
Here.
Ganfield.
Here.
Sires.
Here.
Dunn. Here. All members present, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion to approve the regular minutes of February?
So moved.
Second. Motion and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes and takes us over to agenda revisions. Do we have any tonight, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, item number 21 on the resolution calendar is being removed.
Okay, so we'll strike 21. And that brings us over to special presentations. I do have a proclamation tonight. We had a proclamation tonight. There's a lot of paperwork. There we are. So the proclamation for tonight is International Women's Day, which is to be celebrated tomorrow, March 8th, 2022. And it states, whereas International Women's Day was honored for the first time in Austria, Denmark, Germany, and Switzerland in 1911, and whereas March 8th is celebrated worldwide as International Women's Day to recognize achievements of women and their contribution to society, and whereas women can celebrate significant progress and equality globally, but also contemplate those areas where more can be done through access to education, healthcare, and paid labor, as well as legislation to ensure equal opportunities for women and respect for their human rights. And whereas nowhere in the world can women claim to have all the same rights and opportunities as men, and until we all work together to secure the rights and full potential of women, lasting solutions to economic, social, and political problems are unlikely to be found. Therefore, I, Mayor Robert M. Green, City of Cedar Falls, do hereby proclaim March 8th, 2022 as International Women's Day in the City of Cedar Falls, and I encourage citizens to work to address the social, economic, and political barriers still facing women and girls while celebrating their achievements and the progress made in the support of women's equality. Signed this 28th day of February, 2022, Mayor Robert M. Green. So with that, that takes us out of special presentations and into public forum, where speakers will have one opportunity to speak for up to 5 minutes on topics germane to city business. Does anyone from the public wish to speak tonight? Rosemary Beach, come forward, please. Just name and address for the record, please, ma'am.
Good evening, Rosemary Beach, 5018 Sage Road, Cedar Falls, Iowa. And thank you for all the women in this room. Thank us. We didn't have anybody to accept it, so I automatically accepted it. You notice that?
Thank you.
Okay, anyway, number one thing, I hope you all received in your portfolios the 2 articles that Herb Hake had written in the 101 Stories of Cedar Falls. I thought that might give you a little better information from a good writer that how those two buildings came to be and how important they are to the university and how much more important they should be to Cedar Falls itself. And I also want to thank the Courier for a nice write-up in the paper recently, which gave a really good overlay of what we're trying to help save. The word is getting out, and I'm going to keep coming until the word is out everywhere. I did ask one of the council people, and so I don't know whether I can say, I asked Ms. Dunn if she had gotten any response from working with UNI. And I did ask her if she thought you would have a meeting. Have you had a meeting? Or is there any kind of thing going on with that? That would be nice to have happen. If it happens, I would like to go and see what it is that we can work together and not be a town and gown. It's always been a town and gown. And I'd like to see us do things more together, that is for sure. I also was intrigued by the paper with things happening in Cedar Falls this last weekend. And this is where people of import were asked about how things were going in our cities. And I see that our mayor has said that they will shift focus to the College Hill Character District to clearly guide investors as they develop and redevelop commercial and residential properties there. In keeping with this and giving College Hill's cultural and economic importance, I proclaim 2022 as the year of College Hill, and I'm eager to see the investment, energy, and capital into the neighborhood. The city will do its part to promote development through the updating zoning ordinance and by following through with other aspirations of the image College Hill, vision adopted by Council in 2021. Well, as I read that, it says to me, we ought to be saving 2 houses on the campus, shouldn't we? That's the image of our university, is those buildings, what happened there, and why they're even there. We wouldn't have had a college here if we didn't have people who, like yourselves, in the early 1800s went down and got the orphans home. After the orphans home, well, they asked if we couldn't have a college here and a teacher's college. So I think that we need to work together to preserve that outlook. College Hill is never, well, my husband was a businessman on College Hill for a number of years, as you know, and they tried to work together, and I want to tell you, if they'd passed it way back when and had a parking lot, a tiered parking lot in the back lot of Latta's or the College Hill store, you would have had a lot less problems. So think far ahead, because that was brought before the council so many times to build that up there so you could have more people shopping, more people coming in. But don't just say this is the college, this is a university, this is town. It isn't. There is no line between that going down the street. And I think you ought to, if you haven't been in those buildings, you can go there. The door is open. Go to Searly's Cottage. Open the door, go in, lovely little people who are working in that building will take you on a tour. You will see that the building is grand. If it was any place else in Cedar Falls, we'd love to save it, wouldn't we? But when it's gone, and gone is the heritage with that at that time. So thank you. I'll probably be back next time. But in any event, I hope that the College Hill idea takes hold and doesn't just go for the business district, but the hill itself, and we could have a little bit more togetherness. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Beach. And just for an answer to that question about the UNI meeting, that is on working on schedule for that. Mr. Gaines, do we have a date set for that?
I believe it's going to be next meeting, Mayor, but I will need to check with the university.
Okay, yeah, so we're finalizing that, and that will be a public meeting, so certainly public is welcome to attend that as we have a discussion.
Can somebody let me know that if I ask?
You did, so I will.
Basically, I can't hear anything you said, so I have no idea what you said.
We will let you know for that meeting time,
Okay,
and I got your number, so I'll give you a call. Thanks, ma'am. All right, anyone else wish to speak from public comment? Mr. Tiber, name and address for the record, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council. Nick Tiber, 4925 Kiley Court, Cedar Falls, Iowa. First, let me congratulate all the new council members. You'll be faced with challenging decisions, but let principle, reason, and faith be your guide, and you'll be on the right side more often than not. This is especially true with controversial issues. Issues become controversial when they strike an emotional chord in our voters. Emotions are often triggered by misunderstandings, bias, and misinformation. It is tempting to join the emotional bandwagon because it feels good to help, or worse, because you think it is the popular choice. True leaders are able to convey the merits of a position, and more importantly, implement a position into a successful program and outcomes. With these words, I want to honor one of our finest leaders, Director Olson. Almost a decade ago, City Council, including myself, charged you to develop a new public safety model, one that delivers greater services at a lower total cost. Was it popular? I'll let everyone answer that decision. Was it right? Absolutely. The chief kept this program moving forward despite nonstop criticism, scrutiny, and organized opposition. City staff, certain council members, and our awesome public safety professionals deserve tremendous credit for giving the chief time, the confidence, and the resources to implement the program to success. But make no mistake about it, this program's ultimate success is a credit to Director Olson, maybe the best leader, manager, and mentor among us. So Director Olson, you accomplished what few in government service could begin to fathom: positive change. Government doesn't reward change. The system, the populism, special interests, and the incentives actually discourage it. You put your job on the line. I know your family was threatened, and your only incentive was a scarce attaboy. Director Olson, you gave so much to the city. You improved it in measurable and immeasurable ways. And in my opinion, you created the very best public safety program in this state and maybe the nation. You will always be seen, in my eyes and the eyes of many, many more, as one of the greatest leaders ever to serve this great city. So on behalf of our great community, thank you, Director Olson. Take pride in your accomplishments and enjoy your well-earned retirement.
Thank you, Mr. Tiber. Anyone else wish to speak in public comment? Ms. Hester, please. Name and address for the record.
I'm Melissa Heston. I live at 1911 Hawthorne. I'm here because I'm very concerned that in an effort to respond to concerns about rising property tax values and costs, the housing assessment project has been put on hold for a year. I'm a member of the Housing Commission. I'm a member of the Human Rights Commission, and I served on the Racial Equity Task Force looking specifically at housing. Housing is a serious, serious issue. If you've been paying attention, you'll notice property prices are skyrocketing, and that's very problematic. It's because we don't have enough of the right kind of housing. We're getting houses, my house, my little 2-bedroom starter home from 1952 is approaching $150,000 to $160,000, which that's good for me, but I don't think it's good for young families who want to move into the area. I don't think it's good for the other people who work in our community who can't afford to live here. I think housing is a critical factor in what makes a community worth living in. And we're letting housing become an exclusionary factor as those property prices rise, young families, single people, rental prices go up, it all goes up. We need a housing assessment study done now. It's $35,000 out of a $110 million budget. It's small potatoes, to say the least. Unfortunately, the Housing Commission did not get a chance to discuss this, so I'm not speaking for them, and I want to be really clear about that. It was very clear, or should have been very clear, that the Racial Equity Task Force was in support of this, and apparently, early on, you all had no trouble with it. But to remove it, because it'll save $35,000 when actually the savings you're going to get from cutting $1 million from the tax bill is less than $1 a person for $100,000 a month for $100,000 property. If we have people on fixed incomes who can't afford an additional $1 in property tax a month to fund what we need funded, we have way bigger problems than you may be aware of. $1 a month. We're talking about $100,000 with the full package of taxes going up less than $3 a month. That's not a big increase for any one person. In the meantime, we're dropping property rates on rental properties and on multi-complex, whatever, multi-housing, multi-residential housing, and on business owners. Well, you know, there might be good reasons for that, but if we're going to drop the property, their property taxes in ways that cause us to step back from projects that need to be done, we are not serving the community well. So I ask you to at least put back the $35,000 housing assessment project. And frankly, I'd just soon you put back the whole tax levy. That would be my choice. And I know people don't like taxes, but taxes pay for our services. And I think we get good services for our dollars, every single penny. So I don't have an issue with an extra $3 a month for property taxes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Eston. Anyone else wish to speak from the gallery tonight? Yes, ma'am. Name and address for the record, Ms. Yates.
My name is Carol Yates, 519 Chateau Court, Cedar Falls. Good evening, Mayor Green and City Council members. I read in the Courier that at the last February Council meeting, the Council deferred the resilience funding for the upcoming budget year, along with several other budget lines to reduce property taxes, as Melissa mentioned. I'm a community member of the Cedar Falls Resilience Core Team. I'm here to remind the Council that resilience includes a number of things for our community. It includes being prepared, and it includes being flexible for extreme weather events like the derecho last December, like the storms this past weekend. Resilience also means having a strong local economy, supporting our local businesses, being welcoming to all people who live here or want to live here. I anticipate and trust that the Council will add resilience funding back to the budget in the near future. For the resilience plan, a number of online surveys and workshops were offered during the pandemic across 2020 and 2021. The online participation in those was on a par with the kind of in-person participation for the Downtown Visioning Project. In fact, for some people online offered an easier way to participate. A good number of Cedar Falls citizens took the time to participate. I encourage you to listen carefully to the findings and action ideas this spring when an in-person town hall will be held. The community will learn about the results of the resilience plan, a plan that can continue many of the ideas that Cedar Falls has already started. If you as council members weren't able to participate in the online workshops and surveys, I hope you will be able to make time to attend the town hall, to listen to the community participants, give your ideas, and learn more about what resilience can look like for Cedar Falls. I know our staff for the city will let us all know when that town hall will be offered in person, and I look forward to seeing you all there. I want to shift gears just for a minute and say that, like Melissa, I was disappointed to see that the housing assessment recommended by the Racial Equity Task Force was also taken from the coming year's budget. If we're serious about making progress on racial equity, this housing assessment is critical. This budget item will help our community begin to understand what kind of housing is needed and begin to make that happen. The need for different kinds of housing was also discussed in the resilience workshops, and is one more way to be more resilient and welcoming. I trust that if the budget passes tonight, the budget items for housing assessment as well as resilience will be put back into the budget for the following many years. Cedar Falls needs to continue the work that's begun to be a community that's resilient regarding weather, housing, transportation, and energy. These needs are urgent enough that it might be penny wise and pound foolish to cut them from the city budget for this coming year. The Courier report from the last council meeting noted that with the council's budget revisions, quote, an owner of a residential property valued at $100,000 went from paying approximately $30 more for the year to $20. The council saved residents $10. How many pennies a day are we saving versus moving Cedar Falls forward in resilience and equity? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Yates. Anyone else wish to speak from the gallery tonight? Okay, seeing none, then I will consider the public forum closed here, and that'll take us over to special order of business, which is item 3 first item is that public hearing on a proposed FY23 budget for the city of Cedar Falls. Is there a motion to receive and file proof of publication?
So moved.
Then motioned
Second.
and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes and takes us to written communications. Do we have any filed tonight, Madam Clerk?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. For staff comments, tonight we have Director Jen Rodenbeck, and the floor is yours, ma'am.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Tonight is the official public hearing for adopting the FY23 budget. As the council's aware, it's kind of been a long process to get here and lots of steps. So the proposed budget that's before you tonight sets the tax rate at $11.51. So what was published was the $11.67 rate, but then based on the reductions that were a result of the council actions this last Monday, that's what gets us to the $11.51. So when you take the $11.51 levy rate and you couple that with the tax rate, with the reassessment of residential, the rollback factors for each class of property, it will result in a 3.2% increase on residential, a 1.1% increase on commercial industrial, and a 4.5% decrease on multi-residential. If budget approved tonight, then obviously we'll have the full budget out on our website for anybody to go view. It's been part of the packets, but obviously after tonight, then we'll put it out there with all the other budgets for the other years.
Okay. Thank you, Director Rodenbeck. That moves us over into public comments. Does anyone from the public wish to speak on the budget? We had 2 comments already. Any additional? Okay, seeing none, then I'll bring it over to, or consider the public hearing closed and bring us over to the council as item E, 3E, resolution approving and adopting the FY23 budget for the city of Cedar Falls. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Open it for council discussion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Cyrus.
I have just a short comment. When we have extra money the year before, instead of using that in CIP, I think we should look forward and be a little bit more forward thinking and take care of our people and not raise their taxes. I'm only speaking about, we had $4.5 million that we could have brought forward. We spent it. Would have been nice to bring forward $1 million, keep our tax rate the same, and then go ahead at that point and decide what to do with that extra money. I think that money should always go first into the general fund, and then we decide after that for the next year. I think it's foolish to always go ahead, and I've never heard this council vote that we would use extra money only in CIP at the end of the year. I think we need to look forward into the next year, make sure we don't need that money before we spend it. That's all.
Thank you. And I'll note, I just was looking up the site for that. It's included in the council's goal-setting budget or goal-setting document, which is part of the budget. And the council has that option every year to discuss during the goal-setting sessions which, if any of the items they would like to change. Now, as it is in the goal-setting document, it states that council's direction is for staff to set aside those funds that aren't used at the end of the year, GO monies, to put into capital improvements. So certainly would love to have that discussion in committee in the next goal setting, if you'd like to do that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'll mark that for next time.
Yeah, because I was not at this one because of COVID,
Okay.
this goal setting. Yep, thank you, Mayor.
So we discuss that every year as well. It's basically the same document every year. All right, so with that, any other council discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Dunn.
if the 2 items, first, can I ask where we're at in the resilience plan? I think we kind of just got an explanation, but where are we at in that?
We've been working to get a public meeting scheduled. What happened was we had some drafts that we had to review and felt that they needed some improvement before we would be ready to schedule that. And then the COVID levels got high again, and so we paused for a bit. So we're hoping to confirm a date and get that information out for whether it be late March or sometime early April.
Okay. And then just, could you remind me if these 2 items, if there was a motion to add those back in, what would that look like for this process and moving forward on the budget? Does that make us have to go back to another
No, because as long as, again, we can do anything still under that $11.67 levy that was published. So as long as we don't add everything back in and add more.
Sure.
But we could go back and add one or two things that we discussed last Monday and we'd still be fine. We wouldn't have to start over or anything.
Sure.
So that
May
could
I
be an amendment
move,
then.
may I move to amend the current budget and add the resilience plan and the housing assessment costs back into that budget as they had been?
Okay, so it's motion to amend to restore the resilience plan and the housing assessment. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Okay, it's been motion and seconded. Open for council discussion.
Question. With the resilience money, the one reason why I felt comfortable delaying that was the fact that we haven't had the final presentation, and then from the final presentation, we still have to have conversations amongst council on what projects we're going to do. So my question is, if we are we actually going to get anywhere this year to even be able to push that money anywhere? So with the housing needs assessment, I would be open to having that back in there because that would be something that we could do directly starting July 1st.
So could we split that into two amendments then?
We could. I guess I didn't ask my question. I said too much. Sorry. My question ultimately is, with the resilience stuff and where we're at, what is staff's interpretation of what are we going to see for actionable items for council? Is it worth putting it back in this year, in your opinion, or with actionable items, is it going to be better for next year's budget? Because I do want to see it. I do want to see us take action on that plan.
The draft plan that we've been reviewing has a number of recommendations in it. So, and a lot of them are linked together. So once we have an adopted plan, then we can talk about, okay, well, which one's a shorter term priority and how can we fit that into the funding that we have?
So theoretically,
not a direct answer, but a little.
So theoretically, from the plan, because I haven't seen it, there are actionable items that we could initiate within the fiscal year 23.
There are a
correct?
number of recommendations for areas we need to be working in. Yeah.
Okay, that answers the question. Thanks.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Cruz.
one big elephant in the world right now is the Russian-Ukraine conflict, and something that we haven't seen very much is an effect on our daily lives and what that's going to bring about. A conservative estimate is that's going to last at least a year before Russia decides to do anything. Who knows? But I don't know if we got $5 gas in Cedar Falls yet or not. I know I've seen $4.50. Reading several articles as I do for my research, Ukraine produces a tremendous amount of wheat, and if their wheat harvest is disrupted, which feeds all of Europe, then our wheat that we sell in America is going to skyrocket. A shortage of wheat, basically. They're a big producer of natural gas, which is our home heating fuels, driving up the cost of that. We've seen that from last year with the problems in Texas, how that shot up, but we've not seen the beginning of what's going to happen with natural gas. They're a big producer of fertilizers, Russia and Ukraine, and something benign as sunflower oil, which is 10% of the cooking oils in America, or in the world. So, every penny helps. Just want to keep that in mind, that we've got some tremendous budget changes that are going to happen in our lives that we don't have any choice on. And so, I can hear the pleas for replenishing some of the monies, but at the same time, we've got the stark reality of the costs of fuels for the city skyrocketing, if not doubling. We might see $6 oil or gas. I saw a image on Facebook of $7.50 gas in California, and I remember the day when it was $4 out there, and I didn't think it'd ever get to us. But so just something to think about there. I guess I'm somewhat resistant to change any of these things that we took out just because of what I see potentially coming. And I know that within our city budget, we got cushions that we can use to cover things. And these items are kind of a small amount. I would actually even venture to continue to remove the monies that were put for the zoning changes that were left from last year and for the rental conversion to apply those to some of our future city bills because our bills are going to go way up on a number of things.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I appreciate those thoughts, and as a mother of 3 and, not living high on the hog myself, I can appreciate sticking to a budget and thinking about cost savings. But to me, that's all the more reason to support resilience, because that's what it addresses. It addresses how we get away from this current mentality that we have that's so hard for us maybe to think about. It's future forward thinking, and it addresses some of the things that you just said, how to not be so reliant on the traditional types of fuels, and it addresses housing and maybe how to save costs or think differently than we have in the past about housing, transportation. I mean, so many things. So while I appreciate that, and I surely appreciate saving money, again, this is such a small little bit. And in the end, if we can just get past the thought of this is costing us, if we move forward, and it's going to save us, and it literally could save us as a species. So, I mean, I just want to make sure we understand how important these things are. And not just for us. I mean, we're talking about the lives of future people in our community.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Frank.
I agree with Councilmember Dunn on that. A lot of the issues that stem up from globalization, resilience tends to look at solving. But then another thing we've talked about is the fixed income and housing. The housing assessment could help with that. It could help address people who are on a fixed income to get more affordable housing, to get their taxes down. It does seem like, I get it, where do you cut the dollars? But these are two important things that could end up saving us money in the long run, as well as helping future generations. So I would support putting those two items back in.
Any other thoughts for that? Councilor DeBeer?
Well, we had received comment from several people, or I had anyway, on email asking us to try to lower that percentage down. So we as a group got together, and there was consensus on not all the issues that were brought forward or the ideas, but many of them, and some of them were, like for that part-time person, we went to half a year. So I think we should stay with the consensus with the agreement that we did a week ago.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to double check. Were there any alternative sources for the housing assessment discussed since we talked about removing it from the budget? I don't want to speak out of turn by even mentioning it.
We hadn't discussed any other sources. No, we hadn't.
Okay.
Other thoughts? Okay, so the amendment, we'll just keep them together. The amendment was to restore the resilience plan and the local housing assessment to the FY23 budget. So the motion and seconded. All in favor of the amendment itself, not the budget, but the amendment, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so I'm hearing that as a nay. So that keeps the resilience plan and the local housing assessment out. That takes us back to the original budget of resolution approving and adopting the FY23 budget.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Cruz.
As I mentioned, to tighten our belt even more, we have what I'm reading, 90,000 in reserve left from last year for the item 54 zoning revisions and item 55 rental conversion of 70,000. If we could allocate those monies into the budget for what's likely going to be higher fuel costs and that sort of thing, I'd like to delay those like we did the other items there.
So the amendment, the amendment is to
Delay the items use, I guess would be the way to say it, leftover money from the reserves of item 54 and 55
So,
for other purposes.
okay, so removing item 54 and 55 effectively, right?
I guess that'd be
This year.
a
'Cause
question
there'd be no
for
funding.
Rodebeck. If we have the money extra and didn't use it, what do we do to reallocate it across the rest of the city budget for higher fuel costs, let's say?
So just to make sure, I think everybody understands what you're saying is, I think what you're saying is where we were going to take the 90,000 from the current year for zoning, for instance, that we didn't spend, we were going to earmark that to use for zoning for an FY23. So we still had 150,000 total in FY23. So I think what you're saying is if we take the 90,000 and reallocate it to other things, like you said, fuel prices, then you're saying to only have 60,000 available in FY23 for the zoning. Correct? I mean, I just want to make sure that's.
I mean, that's part of it, but now that you mentioned that there's 60 there, I think you could take that as well out of the
We've already
budget.
resolved that. But, I mean, we can do it again with the new
I
information
mean, we
in
just,
place for the
we're taking out, we
inflation.
made a motion to put in, we made a motion to take out.
All right. and
So
put it again.
I'm revisiting this here in light of world situation. $5 gas is not fun.
All right. So before we talk any further on that, there's a motion or the amendment to move that 90K that was going to be sent forward into this fiscal year as an earmark to remove that and address other higher fuel costs, as well as the 55K in
The general budget of the city.
Okay, so to put that back in the general budget, and that also is the 55K for the, what was that?
Rental.
It was item number
The rental
55, it was
conversion.
70,000
Okay.
for rental conversion.
All right.
Because I
So-
believe we had only 3 applicants last year, so there's
So that's,
70 left.
excuse me, so that's been motioned for amendment. Is there a second?
I'll second to discuss it. I'll second, yes.
Okay, open for discussion.
I have a question on that. On the rental conversion one, didn't we already have that earmarked or promised to some grant applicants?
Well, for this year, so we only took 70,000 to carry it over. So we had 100,000 budgeted this year. We've already done one project. We have an application pending, and we were kind of giving us some room for, in case another one came in. So that's why we were only reserving 70,000 to carry over into FY23. So I think what I heard was that, again, my Mr. Cruz's amendment is, what you're saying is we would not earmark that 70,000 for rental conversion next year. So for FY23, we would only have 30,000 available to spend on the program versus 100,000.
Is
Miss-
there a cap that an applicant?
10,000.
10,000.
10,000. So you could do 3 projects, I guess, with the 30,000.
But we did expand it, correct?
Yeah, to the whole.
We expanded it to the whole city, whereas before, we probably will get more applicants this year, theoretically.
I thought did we actually expand it yet, or did we say we want to look at expanding it?
I think we want to look at it.
My understanding was
The
that it
sheets,
was
if you want to.
agreement to expand.
It's a consensus-based thing for staff, correct?
When
So-
we adopted the program, we brought that forward for council consideration to talk about the area that it was applying to, so we would bring that back for discussion.
So it's not set yet.
No.
Okay.
And, sorry.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Sires.
he's only referring to bring it into the general fund again, not for tax relief for this next year? Is that what I'm understanding?
Where could it be, Director Rodebeck,
Sure.
how do you use it to lower the property tax?
So I think, again, to maybe clarify what I think I'm understanding is that really then what you're saying is we would keep the rate that was proposed for tonight, the $11.51, because it was based on the cuts from last Monday. But what you're saying is instead of earmarking those for those things in FY23, zoning and housing, you want those to be used for other costs in the general fund, I think is what I'm hearing.
And therefore reduce the levy if we can.
See, that's what I was clarifying. I was thinking what you were saying is we wouldn't reduce it more, but it could help for how do I say, like general fund savings, when we're doing amendments for FY '23, what you're saying is we would have that available to help offset those costs and could help for the '24 levy.
Well, sure, it could be
Yeah.
when eventually the resiliency plan is ready to be implemented, potentially, right?
Sure, we could earmark it at that point.
Well, yeah, but it's there to be used, not for these programs.
Any other discussion for this amendment?
Mr. Mayor, just to be clear, the money that we're talking about for zoning, that is for the College Hill zoning. Am I correct?
Correct.
Which we did have a consensus that we were going to put back in the budget. So if we take it out again,
There's still 60.
I feel like, and I don't know, I feel like we are in such a point with our College Hill neighborhood and with our largest employer, the University of Northern Iowa, to take any support away from them is not the direction that I feel is correct or right for our city. So I just want to make sure we're all remembering back to the meeting where those folks showed up and voiced their support for this money, and where we gave the consensus to move forward with that. So it's not just, it's money that we earmarked for College Hill.
This might be a question for Chase. On our fuel, do you control the purchasing of our fuel, and are we under a contract to purchase and have a budgeted amount that you figured that we could go within a range, or?
Generally, we have that, and actually Dustin's here, the fleet maintenance supervisor, and he might better be able to address that. But we program funds each year, but in anticipation for spikes, I mean, that's kind of up to the
market.
Yeah, so each day we need, excuse me, Mayor Council, each day we need fuel, we call out and get multiple vendor prices for our product, and then we pick the lowest one that day. So whether it be diesel or gasoline.
Are we buying fuel every month, or we've got contracts?
It depends on demand. Diesel fuel, obviously, a lot more during snow events, heavy things like that. Typically, we have two sites, diesel and gasoline at both sites, and I would say on average, every 6 to 8 weeks per tank gets fueled, whether it be gas or diesel. Kind of goes in a cycle. We're kind of one a week, and then we got to wait a few weeks. It kind of goes that way.
So how much of an impact would an additional $90,000 mean to your budget?
Typically, like a tanker of fuel right now, if memory serves, is about $20,000 for about 8,000 gallons of fuel. And that's average between gas and diesel. So 90 could be an impact. I mean, you're talking, 3, 4, 5 loads of fuel.
And how much do we go through a year?
I'd have to look back and see exactly. I couldn't get that number to be exact. I can get that for you for sure.
But the gas price is definitely going to affect the budget for your fuel consumption. Or
Correct.
purchasing.
Yeah, we've kept kind of the same budget over the past quite a few years. So I'd say the last 3 years we've come under budget. So I'd have to look see where we're at right now. But I would say we're going to be probably pretty close to it this year. I think it was around 2015 or something like that. They were kind of higher. And then we had to, make some amendments, but we did not lower it when the prices were lower. That's something that we just kind of kept that in there with anticipation of them going back up sometime.
Is it possible to anticipate that if the cost went significantly up, you would change operations potentially?
I would say that would probably be something that we would do. I can't speak that directly with other departments, but I imagine that's something we would consider doing, idle times being strictly enforced, things like that.
All right, other questions or comments about the amendment itself? Yes, Councilmember Dwyer.
Well, Jennifer, by doing this, does that save us problems down the road with how we're going to fund this? Or I know you do budget amendments as needed, but we've got to have the money to be able to do the amendments.
Sure. And one thing I just wanted to clarify too is just like Dustin was talking about, so vehicle or gas is paid for out of our vehicle maintenance fund. And so how that works is then every budget is charged the next year for their allocated amount of maintenance, gas, I'm only just bringing that up is that that has a little bit of a delayed effect then is what I'm trying to say. That doesn't mean it's not a real effect. It is. But it is a little bit of a delay in that. The other thing that I think you always want to keep in mind is, that is also why you hear us talk about why cash reserves are so important. These are exactly what we're talking about. So if there was, when you asked the question about would higher prices change operations, it might, but it also may be that's exactly what our cash reserves are for too. And that's why we try to maintain those in every fund, including the vehicle maintenance fund.
Is that something that could apply for the emergency reserve as well? The council option?
It could. It could do the emergency reserve, or like I said, if we have cash reserves in our vehicle replacement fund as well, that we could also decide to do it from them as well.
So
Other questions, comments? Councilmember Cruz.
how do we then replenish the reserves through the next year's tax levy or explain that part?
Yeah, especially for vehicle replacement. Emergency reserve, that's not as easy. Usually when that's spent, that means it's spent. But with our vehicle replacement, that means everybody's allocation would go up. If we wanted to replenish the reserves, we could add that in. Everybody's allocation would go up, and then any budget that's in the general fund obviously would cause a property tax increase. I can tell you for our vehicle replacement allocation every year, it's about 50% that goes to general funds and about 50% that goes to other funds, sewer, refuse, street.
What about heating the buildings? I mean, we got a lot of city buildings to keep warm.
Right.
We lower the temperature, 65, wear coats. What do we do? Sweat more?
Sure.
I mean, what kind of reserve do we have there?
So right now, I would say we don't have a reserve for utilities. I mean, we do in that if you want to look at every single fund, because obviously each fund pays their own utilities. Public safety building utilities comes out of the general fund because it's police and fire. Utilities on the water reclamation plant comes out of the sewer fund because that's the operation. So again, it depends which fund you'd be talking about, but again, every fund has reserves. That's why we maintain those. And just so everyone know, we did budget a 10% increase this year for utilities. A lot of that was based on, natural gas, electric, that we knew we were going to have. So we already budgeted 10% increase for utilities. Whether that's enough, not sure.
Does that 10% incorporate inflation too? So like a 3% increase overall, or is it really an actual 10%?
Well, we based it on we had CFU actually help us kind of tell us what is our bills going to be for the next year based on some of their new prices. And so, again, it's all the utilities. So we took an average and did the 10% is what we saw was going to be our increase in utilities. So
sounds like CFU would already account
right.
for inflation.
So they helped us with that.
Okay.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor?
That's Kendall.
Yeah, I just figured I'd point out, this being the year of College Hill, I can't imagine the perspective of a citizen not being a little bit confused when we say we want to support you and partner that way. Myself and some other council members went down to the Capitol Hill in support of University of Northern Iowa. So in both of those initiatives, we want to continue to exercise support. Our staff has done a great job as we looked at the 21 actual expenditures. They came in under budget, so I have no doubt that we should be able to find some savings to take care of these concerns as much as one can. Obviously, the uncertainty of this next year does not fall on deaf ears. I want to point out that, to Councilmember DeBurr's point, we've decided this. We've had a couple of residents come and say, hey, I'd like you to add these items back in, and say, no, we're going to stay the course. We should do the same thing here and stay the course with what we've decided and keep the funding there. And I'd like to call the question.
Okay. Any objection to calling the question? All right. So yes.
I guess are we calling the question to his
On the
amendment
amendment.
or calling the
To the
question for
amendment.
the agenda?
Okay.
On the amendment.
On the amendment.
So with that.
So that requires
a
a
second.
two-thirds vote to call the question.
Call the question.
Okay. So is there a
So you're saying you want to stop the debate?
yeah.
Correct.
On the amendment, yeah.
So there's no debate on calling the question, so it's all in favor.
Yep. So motion so all in favor of calling the question, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Question is called. Thank you. That brings us to the amendment itself, and let's have City Clerk read that for us, please, ma'am.
Certainly. What I have is the motion to remove funding for number 54, College Hill zoning, and 55, rental conversion program from the budget.
Okay.
I don't think that's exactly right. I just want to make sure. I think what I was asking earlier, I think to clarify what the motion was is the reserved amounts out of 22, the 90,000 for zoning, 70,000 for rental, we're not going to earmark for those two things, and we're going to save it for other things. So again, that means there'd be 60,000 for zoning in FY23. That's why I didn't want to say remove, because that's not exactly right. It would be 60,000 then in 23 available for zoning, 30,000 available for the rental conversion, I think is what I heard was
Right.
the motion.
And then those funds going into general, so not.
Right, to help with other costs. So I think,
Right.
again, what I heard is, so the 1151 rate would not change for today. I mean, that would stay the same. It's just where we're earmarking that 90 and 70 for.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we still got the 60 and the 30 for the items.
Any questions on that amendment? Then I'll call it. Okay, so it's to amend, as the city clerk had described. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so we are back to the original motion of the approving the budget. So any further discussion on that? Okay, I'm hearing none, seeing none. So motion and seconded as a resolution approving and adopting the FY23 budget for the city of Cedar Falls, and this requires a roll call vote.
Cruz.
Aye.
Harding.
Aye.
Gamfield.
Aye.
Sires.
Nay.
Dunn.
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
DeBoer.
Aye.
6 voting aye, 1 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Madam Clerk. Takes us over to item 4, which is continuation of the public hearing on a proposal to enter into agreement for private development and to consider conveyance of certain city-owned real estate to McWing LLC. We are continuing that hearing because we have some additional staff comments and some potential changes. So Shane Graham will be our speaker tonight on that item.
Thank you, Mayor. As you mentioned, this is a continuation of the public hearing from the last meeting. I'll go over a brief project history here. So staff's been working with McWing LLC towards the construction of 4 new buildings, 10,000 square foot each, for a total of 40,000 square foot on 3 acres of land along Capitol Way, west of Production Drive in the West Viking Road Industrial Park. Once all 4 buildings are completed, they would have a building valuation of $2.8 million and a total project valuation of just under $3 million. The project schedule would be to construct 2 of the buildings this year and then 2 of the buildings in 2023. With the 2 buildings commencing, I think, as soon as construction season will allow. As far as the incentives for this project, the donation of the 3 acres for this project, again, it's a 40,000 square foot total square foot building area, which does fall within the council policy of donating 1 acre of land for every 10,000 square foot. So a 3 acre parcel for 40,000 square foot does fall in line with past practice. The tax incentive, typically for a project like this, the city would consider a 5-year industrial partial property tax exemption, which is a tax abatement that the county assessor's office applies. However, this project is unique in that the developer does not plan to own the units. What they plan to do is create a horizontal property regime and then sell the units individually. So the developer will not own these. Typically, you would see the owner would either own the building or lease it and then maintain ownership. In this instance, the developer does plan on selling all of these units and then will not own any of them. So with the partial property tax exemption, the exemption is attached to the property owner. So once the developer sells these, the exemption would go to whoever the next buyer is or who next owner is. So in order to assist with the development and the holding costs of the project, the developer has requested that the city consider a tax rebate instead of a tax exemption. In this scenario, the tax rebate would be directed to the developer once the taxes are paid on the property instead of each individual unit and owner. Tax rebate is not a unique incentive for the city to offer, as it is offered in our professional and corporate office projects in the Industrial and Technology Park. that do not qualify for the industrial partial property tax exemption. And then we also do use property rebates in our downtown and our College Hill urban renewal areas as well. Typically for the property tax exemption, we would offer a 5-year exemption, which is on a sliding scale starting at 75% in your first year, going down to 15% in the 5th year. If you average that out over 5 years, it totals to be about a 45% tax abatement. What the developer is requesting in this situation to do the rebate is requesting a 30% rebate for each year over the 5 years, which averaged out is about a 15% less cost savings over the 5 years. I did in the staff memo include a breakdown of the difference between the tax exemption and the tax rebate. And you'll see cost savings to the city of doing the rebate instead of the tax exemptions about $80,000 based on that 15% savings each year over the 5 years. So given the uniqueness of this project where the developer, again, is not going to be owning this, he's looking to sell, and the fact that the tax rebate incentive would save the city $80,000 over that 5 years, staff feels that this request is beneficial for both parties, and staff would request approval. And again, the developer is here, and they would like to get started on the first 2 buildings, I believe, as soon as construction will allow. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you. I'll bring us over then into public comments. Does anyone from the public wish to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, then I'll consider the public hearing closed for this. So 4C takes us to resolution approving and authorizing execution of an agreement for private development and approving and authorizing execution of a deed without warranty conveying certain city-owned real estate to McWing LLC. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Open for council discussion. Any questions? I just have one question for Mr. Graham. Sorry, Mr. Graham. Is this a fairly common type of arrangement to see in industrial parks?
For the city of Cedar Falls, we, again, like for industrial projects, it's been the policy of the city to offer the industrial property tax exemption, but a tax rebate is nothing new. In fact, the city of Waterloo, I would know because I was formerly employed there. Waterloo uses tax rebates in almost all of their projects, including industrial and commercial projects. So it's nothing new by any means. But what the city of Cedar Falls typically uses is the industrial tax abatement, which is the taxes just get abated right through the assessor's office.
And will this require, once those properties are developed, does that require creating individual plats for that property, like lots and lots of tiny plats?
Yes, I believe once setting up a horizontal property regime, the developer will work with the county, and if you're using their website, for instance, you click on the parcel, and it'll probably bring up 20 or 30 different unique parcel IDs where you can click on it, and then each would have their individual owner.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. So any other questions from council or comments? Okay, so seeing none, then it's been motioned and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Cruz.
Aye.
Harding.
Aye.
Ganfield.
Aye.
Sires.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
DeBoer.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. 5 is a public hearing on a proposal to enter into an agreement for private development and to consider conveyance of certain city-owned real estate to KL Iowa 01 LLC. Is there a motion to receive and file proof of publication?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Madam Clerk, do we have any written communications filed for this item?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So staff comments, I believe we have Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a new project in the West Viking Road Industrial Park as well for a new 51,000 square foot building at the corner of Production Drive and Venture Way. There's 3 total lots comprising about 4.35 acres. Again, for a 51,000 square foot building, this would kind of meet the policy of the donation of land, about the 10,000 square foot for every 10,000 square foot of building area. Again, this project is looking to commence this spring right away. Would have a building valuation of $3.2 million with a total valuation with the land of just under $3.5 million. Again, construction is going to start as soon as they can, probably later this month or even into next month as soon as the weather will allow. And we're probably looking at a 9 to 12 month construction time. Again, for the land incentive, again, this kind of meets the standard of what the city offers for land of such a project. And this is a typical industrial type project. So as far as the tax incentive, this one is offering the standard 5-year tax exemption. So you can see the abated amount and the total taxes in the memo there. So with this one, there's 3 lots again at the $3.2 million. And so staff would look to get this through, and the developer, a representative of the company is here if you have any questions for them as well.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I'll open this item up for public comment. Does anyone from the public wish to speak on this? Seeing none, that brings us over, I'll close the public hearing and brings us over to item 5E, which is resolution approving and authorizing execution of the agreement for private development and approving and authorizing execution of a quitclaim deed conveying certain city-owned real estate property to KL Iowa 001. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded, open for discussion. Seeing none, I want to very much thank the Kubica family for their investment in Cedar Falls. It's a fantastic project, and looking forward to seeing the R&D work that you'll be doing and how that will expand into a manufacturing base. So super excited about this kind of development for Cedar Falls. So thank you very much. So motioned and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Cruz.
Aye.
Harding.
Aye.
Ganfield.
Aye.
Sires.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
DeBoer.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item 6 is a public hearing on the proposed plan specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the 2022 CDBG sanitary sewer rehabilitation project. Is there a motion to receive and file proof of publication?
So moved. Second.
Second.
Motion is seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so that does pass. And with staff comments, we have Mr. Dave Wiki, City Engineer. Floor is yours, sir.
All right, thank you, Mayor, Council. Tonight's public hearing is for the 2022 CDBG Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation Project. Project consists of installing a cured-in-place pipeliner within an existing 8-inch and 12-inch hose pipe. Those sewer lines are in selected areas of the city. Total project involves approximately 8,209 linear feet and about 185 service connections. Total estimated cost of construction for this project is $248,119.15. Project is funded by the Community Development Block Grant Funding and the Sewer Rental Funds. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wiki. And with that, I better reach back and go into B, which is the written communications filed, Madam Clerk.
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for my oversight. That brings us over to public comments. Does anyone from the public wish to speak on this item? Seeing none, then I will consider the public hearing closed on 6 and take us over to 6E, which is a resolution approving and adopting the plan specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the 2022 CDBG sanitary sewer rehabilitation project. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Council discussion? Seeing none, then it's been motion and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Cruz.
Aye.
Harding.
Aye.
Ganfield.
Aye.
Sires.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
DeBoer.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So that does pass, and it takes us over to item 7, which is a public hearing on proposed amendments to Chapter 26 zoning of the Code of Ordinances relative to deleting all shared parking requirements in the downtown character district. Is there a motion, is there a motion to receive and file proof of publication of hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes as well and takes us to written communications. Do we have any filed, Madam Clerk?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. So over to staff comments. We have Karen Howard, and she'll be speaking on this, and the floor is yours, ma'am.
Okay, this is a public hearing on an ordinance to delete all requirements and standards related to shared parking in the downtown character district. This was a petition from council to the Planning and Zoning Commission on February 9th at the Planning and Zoning Commission. The commission did not approve this request from council. So this would require a 2/3 majority council vote to approve this ordinance.
Okay. Thank you. So
I can answer any questions you have.
certainly. Do we have any, or excuse me, I'll open the public hearing, and do we have any public comments tonight? Seeing none, then I will close the public hearing and move us to part 7E. Pass an ordinance amending Chapter 26 zoning of the Code of Ordinances relative to deleting all shared parking requirements in the downtown character district upon its first consideration, requiring at least 5 aye votes. So is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Open for council discussion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Dunn.
This is, there's so many times where we've heard what is the oversight for planning and zoning, and what is the role going to be for planning and zoning. I think this is a perfect example of the process, and I just want to make sure we point that out because that's been brought up over and over in this process. So I just want to bring that to everyone's attention. Here's the process working.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Dunn. Other comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Cruz.
I guess jumping ahead a little bit, number 8, there's a big component of that having to do with the shared parking in relation to the 0.75. In the planning and zoning discussion, we wanted to, as council, go to 1. They said the shared parking would drive it to 1 1/4. So we almost need to discuss both of these together in some fashion, because if we eliminate shared parking, we've got elements of 26-196 of the character district codes that are left out of the discussion. One in particular is where it's saying special shared parking, a parking space located on a public street may be included in the calculation of shared parking if it's adjacent to the building site. To me, you build a building on a new site, the street parking or what's adjacent to the building would be street parking, and that shouldn't be considered in shared parking in the calculation. Shared parking is fine if it's in the building for use of the people in the building. And the reason I say this kind of bleeds over into number 8, where planning and zoning approved an increase of 0.75, and their understanding was that they have a 1/4 shared parking included in that. We're debating, where does the shared parking go? We said at the last meeting on a 5-2 vote, we don't want remote shared parking or remote parking 600 feet away. So we got 3 components here that we're kind of mixing together that need to somehow be discussed together or separated in some fashion. I'm not sure how we'd separate them, because you've got how many spots per bedroom, like a static number, and then you've got how much shared parking there should be for each bedroom, and then where do you put that parking, whether it's in the building, contiguously owned. Street parking is not owned by the developer.
But as I understand for the petition, what came forward was passing or deleting all shared parking requirements.
Correct. That's where the problem relies.
So, but we have to vote on what's in front of us.
Well,
Unless you
I'm
want
saying
to,
we could vote
if we
number
try to amend
8 first.
We can't, right? So
The petition is as stated, and P&Z has considered the petition and rejected it, and so this is what's before council now, which is to take action on shared parking.
And because we've had the public hearing, we've closed it, I don't believe it'd be appropriate to then try to change the order now of the items. So
Well,
I'll
it's
keep it as is, unless council objects. That we're
Question
doing
then.
7.
Where are we at then with the schedule on discussing remote parking up to 600 feet away? That was referred to P&Z, and it's not on the schedule coming up, so.
Okay, it's a fair question.
We're working on that. We're taking the petitions from the council in order. So the one before that is to talk about P&Z's role in site plan review. That's a fairly involved one to think about the different options and bring that forward for some consideration. And so then the referral that came subsequent to that, what you're referring to, Mr. Cruz, would happen after that.
So I have a question too. So if we decided to, part of the component of the shared parking required you to add 0.25. Was it to add 0.25 or to that they had to share 0.25 percentage-wise? My understanding was that it added 0.25, so you'd build 0.75 parking spaces. So in other words, if we decided to go ahead and get rid of the shared parking and then we approved either one of the other ones, we would still be parking adequately, correct? Does all that make sense? Because they are intertwined, like Councilmember Cruz said.
Right. So if you eliminate the shared parking, it eliminates that 0.25 spaces.
Extra, correct?
On top of the required.
On top of the required.
Ratio. The other two ordinances are just about what required parking ratio should be, not shared parking.
So originally it was 0.5 plus 0.25, which gets you to 0.75, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And then just to clarify, the 600 feet spacing is eliminated with this particular ordinance. If this ordinance passes, the one that you're considering right now, the 600 feet is eliminated as well, because that was one of the standards. So all the standards related to shared parking would be eliminated with this ordinance.
You're saying if we eliminate shared parking, but if we approve and keep shared parking, the 600 feet away, the parking next to the building is counted as shared parking, even though it's public parking, those would stay.
If you don't pass this ordinance, then that would be a question for, as Ms. Sheet said, would be a question for later then.
But we're saying we originally wanted to delete shared parking. Okay, if this fails, then shared parking stays, along with all of the criteria in 26-196 that I mentioned and I read. So the 600 feet is still there, subject to eventual review down the road with the referral we did. And it's still a concern of where the shared parking is. And it appears that we're not allowed to talk about where the shared parking is here. So will that be part of the 600 feet discussion? The referral for the 600
The
feet?
referral was about the distance. That's what the referral was.
Right. So then I got to make another referral to discuss whether we want street parking next to a building to be counted as shared parking? Or can we incorporate that into the previous referral? Because dividing and conquering is not necessarily a good way to do that. It's kind of all-encompassing, because we're going to be talking about shared parking in the next component, number 8, question number 8 here, item number 8.
Okay.
I think that's a question for council.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Cyrus.
I was at these planning and zoning meetings, and what it seemed to be was they wanted one full spot per bedroom, so they were going to get that by having 0.75, no less than 1 per bedroom, no less than 1, but they were adding the 2.5 to get up to 1 of shared parking. So then it actually came out to be 1 parking spot per unit. And they never did discuss how many feet away. That was never discussed. And I'm pretty sure that was what it was, because I sat through those meetings. So they kind of tie together, but it depends on how this vote goes. And they never did have the 600 feet away nor the on-street parking discussion.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. Okay.
So in other words, Sorry.
Going to follow
Back
on
to
that.
Kelly's point, planning and zoning has thought through it, and they're recommending, again, what they think is best for the city. And
They did, but they were coming up with one by the point
By the point, yeah.
75, and then plus having the quarter shared.
yes,
So if you deleted the shared part of it, then it was like you would want to have the other one and not have the .75. If they had a studio apartment, it was going to be one parking spot, not .75.
Yeah,
I figured everybody was going to have a car. So if they deleted the shared parking, then my guess is they were going to say one per bedroom. But I can only speculate on that, so I don't honestly know. But that's where it all tied together, and there never was a discussion on how many feet away. That's I go to those just so I can pay extra attention.
Councilmember DeBrew.
Well, basically, it sounds like if on number 7, we agree to delete all shared, but then on number 8, we agree to go to one parking. We're getting back to what P&Z was trying to say, which was the one spot. The question is whether it was mandatory or encouraged. I think as the council, we were trying to say, we don't want it to be mandated, we want it to be strongly encouraged.
On the shared.
But
Right,
not
on the
mandated, but
shared.
strongly encouraged.
Which isn't something we can really put into an ordinance.
No, but
Say
by
strongly
voting
encouraged.
yes for number 7 to delete the shared, and then on number 8, voting yes, or voting for the one, you're really getting there.
Exactly.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember.
Can we remind us again what was P&Z's recommendation for number 7? The deleting of shared parking?
So there's, when they brought it forward, it was against the shared, or removing shared parking.
It's like it was
So
a
the-
3 to 4 vote, yeah.
So the process is that we made the referral, it kicked it back to planning and zoning. The folks on planning and zoning, who are citizens, non-elected citizens, debate, I watched it as well, and it was a great conversation, but they came to the conclusion that they do not recommend deleting shared parking. Is that correct?
Correct, but we have the option to override with a 5 vote.
Yeah, I understand. I just want to make sure that, because we get caught in the, how important where the oversight is, and I just want to make sure that we know that the folks, this is the oversight and this is the process.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember Cruz.
if I may, I'd like to make an amendment to this that we eliminate the shared parking off the site. In other words, no 600 feet away and no street parking adjacent to the building should be counted as shared parking.
I don't think we can legally do that.
can't legally do that, I don't believe.
Nope, because it's would have to go back as a referral to planning and
By
zoning
state
to
law.
make that change.
Can I call the question?
Certainly.
Sure.
Call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, question is called. So this is passing an ordinance amending Chapter 26 zoning of the Code of Ordinances relative to deleting all shared parking requirements in the downtown character district upon its first consideration. All in favor, say aye. Oh, excuse me, this
Wait,
requires a
wait.
roll call vote.
Okay, wait, hold on one second. I need to get my head right. So we're voting on whether to delete shared parking. Okay, I'm ready.
No, we got,
We have to have a vote first to call the question, don't you?
We just
Yeah.
We just did.
did.
Okay, so it's been motioned and seconded. Does anybody need me to read it again? None? Okay. Roll call vote.
Cruz,
aye.
Harding,
Nay.
Canfield,
Nay.
Sires,
Aye.
Dunn,
Nay.
Schultz,
Nay.
DeBoer.
Aye.
Motion fails. 3 voting aye, 4 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So that means with it failing, that shared parking requirement is not deleted out of the city code at this point. Item 8 is a public hearing on proposed amendments to Chapter 26 zoning of the Code of Ordinances relative to increasing parking ratios in the downtown character district. Is there a motion to receive and file proof of publication?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. And we are into B. Is there any written communications filed, Madam Clerk?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. And for staff comments, again, we have Karen Howard. So the floor is yours, ma'am.
Okay, this of course is another petition from the City Council for the Planning and Zoning Commission to consider changing the required amount of parking for multi-unit and mixed-use residential in multi-unit and mixed-use buildings in the downtown character district. The council had referred to Planning and Zoning Commission a ratio of 1 parking space per bedroom, which is basically going back to what it was previously in the previous ordinance. The commission considered that that failed to garner a second on the motion. The commission then discussed an alternative motion to forward to the council, and that is also in the same public hearing, and that ordinance would be to increase the parking ratio for those same residential and mixed use and multi-unit buildings to 0.75 spaces per bedroom. But they also considered council's desire to make sure there's 1 parking space per unit. That would address the issue that was discussed about concerns about buildings that had all 1 bedroom or studio apartments. So the commission thought that would be a good change. So the commission, on a 4-3 vote, voted to approve and forward to the council 0.75 spaces per bedroom, but no less than 1 space per unit.
Okay, thank you. And does anyone from the public wish to speak on this? Seeing none, then I'll close the public hearing for this. And it's a little unusual for us to have 2 sort of competing ordinances to consider. What I'd like to do is, if the council's amenable, is read the first one and then have us vote on that, since that's more restrictive. And then if that fails, then go to the second one, which is less restrictive, which has a lower threshold for approval. So does that sound okay, or does council want to do anything different?
Or just
Okay.
either way.
So we'll see as we go. So this is item 8E.
We need a motion, correct? for
Yeah,
one?
I have to read one, and then.
Oh, okay, I got you. Yeah.
And then we'll talk through it. So 8E is passing ordinance amending Chapter 26 zoning of the Code of Ordinances relative to increasing parking ratios for residential mixed use and multi-unit buildings in the downtown character district to 1 parking space per bedroom upon its first consideration. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded, and open for discussion. And I will allow, if you want to talk about both, like the merits of both, that's fine, since they are so closely connected.
Mr. Mayor?
Let's go with Councilmember DeBeer first.
Just a question. So is it the 1 spot per bedroom plus then the 0.25 for the shared?
Correct. If we choose this
Because you
one.
already kept the shared. Okay.
That makes sense. Okay. Councilmember Cruz.
I guess I would interpret it that if we have 1 parking space total, we could have 1/4 of those spaces have to be shared. It'd be the same as the second choice, where it's 0.75 plus a quarter. It's just the language of the code, or it's how it's recognized for the shared parking.
Okay.
It's the same. They both ultimately end up with 1 spot per bedroom.
No.
No, the other one's a 1.25.
The other one would be
bedroom.
1 plus 0.25 for shared based off the way the ordinance reads. So they're different.
Okay.
Basically, E gives you space for the business patrons.
Okay.
Well, that's a good point.
All right. So others, comments? So it's been motioned and seconded. If there's no other discussion, then it does require at least 5 aye votes, since the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended denial or denied this. So it's been motioned and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Cruz,
Aye.
Harding,
Nay.
Canfield,
Nay.
Sires,
Aye.
Dunn,
Nay.
Schultz,
Nay.
DeBoer.
Aye.
3 voting aye, 4 voting nay. Motion fails.
Okay, so that takes us, as a motion fail, that takes us to the second one, which is passing ordinance amending Chapter 26 zoning of the Code of Ordinances relative to increasing parking ratios for residential, mixed-use, and multi-unit buildings in the downtown character district to .75 parking spaces per bedroom, but not less than one parking space per unit, as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission upon its first consideration. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, and again, this would just require a simple majority since the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended it. Open for discussion.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I think as I read it, this gets us to the situation where Councilmember Cruz referenced that we'd have essentially one total bedroom, or one parking spot per bedroom now, and a quarter of those could be used for shared.
Correct.
So we accomplished what we were aiming without over-parking the residential, and then we moved the public parking conversation to a different time. So I think this accomplishes what planning and zoning wanted to do.
Okay, thank you. Other comments, thoughts? Yes, Councilor DeBeer.
Just for clarity, this basically increases it from the current ordinance by .25.
Correct.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification. Other comments, thoughts? Councilor Cruz.
So then, when we have the discussion of where the shared parking is, we can clarify whether we want it on the side of the building or recognize it on the side of the building, 600 feet.
Well, how would that process work then? Or if they want to?
I'd have to do it by referral, I'm assuming,
Yeah.
to add that discussion to the 600 feet discussion.
Or maybe for clarity, it should just be whether public park, or, the streetway should be considered anything in their shared parking. Or does that make it even more confusing?
Say it again.
Whether
The referral that we have right now is to consider the distance of the shared parking. That's what we will take back to the P&Z to discuss, unless the council decides otherwise.
Yeah. Do we need a referral modification? Is that a thing to help guide that? Is that something we want to say for a referral? Mr. Rogers?
No.
I think you can modify the referral.
Okay.
You haven't taken it up yet.
Right.
So I do that at the end or do it now?
Yeah, let's do it at the end just to keep it
Okay.
clean. But certainly we'll be happy to entertain that.
Well, I could make the referral now.
We're not in a referral point.
Yeah.
I thought you
Can't
said we
make a
could just
referral now.
entertain it. Maybe you misspoke.
This hasn't passed yet.
Yeah, we're in the middle of a motion right now, so.
Never mind. I misunderstood what you were saying.
So we are, any other discussion? I think okay. So the motion is passing ordinance, Chapter 26 zoning of the Code of Ordinances, relative to increasing parking ratios for mixed residential use and multi-use buildings in the downtown character district to .75 parking spaces per bedroom, but not less than one parking space per unit, as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission upon its first consideration. This requires a roll call vote.
Cruz,
Aye.
Harding,
Aye.
Ganfield,
Aye.
Sires,
Aye.
Dunn,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
DeBoer.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So that does pass. And this will come before council again for 2 additional readings, since this was just first consideration. So that brings us over the consent calendar. These items will be acted upon by a voice vote in a single motion without separate discussion unless someone from the council or public requests that a specific item be considered separately. Does any council member request to pull an item 9 through 13? Okay, good.
Can we pull number 9?
Please.
Thank you.
All right, so we're pulling 9, and we'll read the rest here. Or any others from council or from the public? Okay, seeing none from the public. So that I'll read all except 9. You just have to wait for a sec. 10 is receiving and filing the City Council work session minutes of February 21st, 2022, relative to the Public Safety Director position and the Public Safety Model. 11 is receiving and filing the 2021 annual reports to the Planning and Zoning Commission, Board of Adjustment, Historic Preservation Commission, Group Rental Committee, and Board of Rental Housing Appeals, Housing Commission, and Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. 12 is receiving and filing departmental monthly reports of January 22, and then 13 is receiving and filing applications for beer permits and liquor licenses. Is there a motion to approve these items minus 9?
So moved.
Motion seconded, and okay, thanks. Motion and seconded, and all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that does pass. Takes us back to item 9, which is receiving and filing a communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Mr. Zachary Zip as the student liaison, term ending 4/30/2022. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. I would just want to welcome Zachary Zip. He's here tonight with us. Very happy to have you connect with us here this evening. And we'll open it. There we are. And I'll open it for Kelly Dunn as well.
I just want to echo the mayor's sentiment. We didn't totally connect today, not because of Mr. Zip, but because we seem to be all over the Capitol today, thanks to the warm welcome by the University of Northern Iowa and our state legislators. But I'm happy that we have a UNI student back in this position, and I'm just, thank you.
All right, perfect. Yeah, so it's been probably
Since
close to 2 years.
Yeah.
Since the start of COVID.
Rebecca, right?
Rebecca Aberly.
Yeah, she was the last one. So welcome.
Yes, and sadly, it's going to be a fairly short tenure here for you. The term ends 4/30/2022, but as we were talking earlier, and having that ability to bring students back in and wanting to engage this, we knew it made sense to do it right away. So you'll get some experience, and we're very happy to have that student voice again here on with the council. So thank you for joining us, and we'll try to get you connected on the side here. It's a little tricky. Usually at the dais you have a spot, so we're all kind of having to play it a little different right now. But very happy to have you with us. But I guess we have to get approval first before you are. So any other discussion on this? Okay, so it's been motioned and seconded to receive and file that communication from the mayor relative to appointment, the student liaison, term ending 4/30/2022. And I have I actually have a question on this. So it's receiving and filing a communication, but it does require council approval, correct?
So, yeah, voice vote approval on this item.
Okay, it does count. All right. So just be clear. So receiving and filing that communication relative to the appointment of Zachary Zip as student liaison. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That does pass. So congratulations and welcome. Look forward to seeing you in the weeks ahead. That takes us over to our resolution calendar, where the following items will be acted upon by a roll call vote on a single motion without separate discussion, unless someone from the council or public requests that a specific item be considered separately. Does any council member request, or we do have 21 removed, so does any council member request to pull an item 14 through 22 with the exception of 21? Okay, seeing none there, does anyone from the public wish to pull an item 14 through 22 with the exception of 21? All right, so with that, it's been motioned, actually I'll read those items. 14 is a resolution approving and adopting certain revised personnel policies. 15 is a resolution levying final assessment for mowed property. 16 is a resolution approving and authorizing submission of a peace officer retention bonus grant application to the state of Iowa, very well deserved. 17 is a resolution approving a C2 commercial zoning district site plan for a storage facility to be located at 3717 Midway Drive. 18 is a resolution approving and authorizing execution of a supplemental agreement with Terracon Consultants for construction through the 2023 season. 19 is a resolution of receiving, filing of bids, and approving and accepting the low bid of Peterson Contractors for the 2022 street construction project. 20 is a resolution approving and accepting the contract and bond for Peterson Contractors for the West Viking Road Industrial Park Phase 5 project. And then 22 is a resolution approving and authorizing execution of 2 owner purchase agreements and approving and accepting 2 temporary construction easements in construction with the West 27th Street reconstruction project. Is there a motion to approve these items?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded, and requires a roll call vote.
Cruz?
Aye.
Harding?
Aye.
Gamfield?
Aye.
Cyrus?
Aye.
Dunn?
Aye.
Schultz?
Aye.
DeBoer?
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That moves us over to bills and claims. Is there a motion to allow bills and claims
So
on
moved.
March 7th?
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any council discussion? Any public discussion? Okay, seeing none, then it's been motion and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Cruz?
Aye.
Harding?
Aye.
Gamfield?
Aye.
Cyrus?
Aye.
Dunn?
Aye.
Schultz?
Aye.
DeBoer.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. For council referrals, Councilmember Cruz, do you want to bring forward your referral now?
Right. I guess I'd request to modify the previous referral referencing the location of the shared parking to include a discussion of item E1A under the 196 parking and loading of the character districts, which refers to the allowing shared parking to be considered adjacent to the building, which would be street parking in my mind. That's not gaining any parking for the building.
That's a lot to write.
I guess I'm over-explaining, yes.
All right.
So I want to make a referral on the location of the shared parking.
Okay. So a referral to planning and zoning to right?
Well, to modify, add to the previous referral.
Yep. So I guess we could do that. You know what?
That's what
you know.
Mr.
What you're
Rogers said a
looking
little bit
for,
ago.
yeah.
It's not
So,
been
so it's the referral is to modify the existing referral. We know what it is. To address the location of shared parking in E1A.
Right, I guess technically if you say up to 600 feet away, that includes the property right next to the building in the 600 feet. But I just want for clarity to make sure that's included.
Okay, does that make sense for Director Sheets, what we're looking for? Okay, so it's been motioned. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and seconded for this referral modification. First time we've done that. Any other discussion? Okay, then all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, let's hear a show of hands. Aye. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nay. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that does pass for the referral, and that will go to planning and zoning. So, any other referrals tonight? Seeing none. Okay, so that'll take us over to city council updates. And I would like to take that opportunity. I didn't think to do it sooner, but for Mr. Zip, would you mind just giving us a 30-second infomercial? Just a little background on yourself, what your major is, all that good stuff. Love to hear it.
Hi, I'm Zach Zip. I'm the Director of Governmental Relations for the Northern Iowa Student Government. I'm a senior political science major, and unfortunately I'll be graduating this semester, so I can't be back next year, but hopefully this position does get filled in the future.
Okay, thank you very much. So with that, do we have any other city council updates tonight?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilman. Whoa, okay.
No, go ahead.
Councilmember Saunders.
I actually do. Being this is storm season, we have a safe room at the Robinson Dresser baseball field. Now, it was put in with FEMA money, and the reason that I'm aware of it is they had come to my mobile home park and asked if they could get signatures, and I said, well, that'd be fine, but we all already have our own storm shelters there. Now, anytime there's a storm event coming, I check my own storm shelters, and now I've started to go and check up to the Robinson Dresser Field. Now, this was built with $1 million, and I've gone there several times, and the gates keep people from driving down close to it. I had to, last storm event a couple nights ago, I had to walk around the chain link fence to get to it, and the girls' bathroom was open, and it has been for quite some time, so people would be able to get in there and be fairly safe because it's kind of built in the whole kind of the whole of it. The whole place is actually a huge storm shelter. Now, the safe room, which is on the south end of that building, has always been locked anytime I've checked there. So my point is, we need to have somebody in charge of that, and I'm really mostly thinking about the Ledges people. Those homes up there have no basements. And we need to make sure that these safe rooms around town for these storm events are open, because it'd be very tragic if we had those locked when people needed to get there. So we need to look into something, and we need to have a map for all these people of all the different safe rooms we have around town. I know the old city hall had one down in the basement. It was more of a bomb shelter because that was built in the late 60s, I believe 1967. So my point is, somebody needs to be in charge of these safe rooms so that they're accessible to the people with no basements. So that's kind of what I'm putting forward. I don't know who has the access to all these different places around town that would be tornado-type storm shelters, but we need to get that looked into. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to go back to the citizen comments during public forum that's come up several, the past few meetings. And I just want the public to kind of be aware that council is very much aware of the concern, and I think there is council concern also about the Honors Cottage or the Searly home, and then the other home, which I'm sorry, I can't remember what we officially call that. And I also believe that, well, I don't want to speak for them, but I don't want anyone in the public to think that council is not concerned about this issue. And there has been some discussion amongst council when this all came about, I believe at the end of 2021. But I also want to make sure the public is aware that these homes are on state land. So the reach of the City Council of Cedar Falls, it's not our jurisdiction. So I just want to make sure, because I feel like there is a chance that the public might be thinking that we just don't care, and that is simply not the case. And as far as that, it's been so long since I made that referral, but I believe the intent for my referral is to have a discussion with the University of Northern Iowa. We hear a lot of stuff either by hearsay or from other sources other than the actual source. And so my hopes of the conversation with the University of Northern Iowa leadership is that we can kind of know where they're at. I feel like it was more of an economic discussion in the plans for the future of the University of Northern Iowa, maybe like where we can collaborate. So I just want the public to know that is the intent, or was the intent of the referral that I made. And council is very much aware of those two homes. And I just don't want anybody to think that because we don't say anything, we don't care.
And I think that discussion was that the university cares too, but it's still a matter of everyone's budget and what's available and what the regents makes available for it. So
right, and are there some convenient opportunities from outside entities to be involved? But that's really primarily a city or a UNI discussion, a state discussion.
Or like private money to be fundraising to cover the repairs that are apparently quite high.
Or building movement or whatever. That's So we're happy if there's a role the city can play. We're interested, but we're fairly limited. Oh, okay.
My thoughts exactly.
All right, so that's council updates. Any other council updates tonight? All right, well, for staff updates, as was alluded to earlier, or directly mentioned earlier by former Councilmember Tiber, this will be Director Olson's final meeting with us as an official city representative after 36 years of service, retiring on March 10th. And that's going to be at the Public Safety Building. There will be a retirement ceremony for you at 2 p.m., correct? Mark your calendars. Okay, so
2 p.m. to 4 p.m.
2 p.m. to 4. Yep, so you have some time. It's like open house. So very much looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you very much for many, many years of service. And I think that deserves another round of applause. And with that, Mr. Gaines, do we have any other staff updates tonight?
No, sir.
Okay, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
So moved. Or motion is seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.